This will be a tutorial on how to implement an inheritance hierarchy with JPA entity classes. The first thing we'll look at is the table structure. You can have any attributes that you want for these tables, but there are some things that you need to have. First of all, each of the tables need to share the exact same primary key attribute. And then secondly, you need to have an attribute in the product table, which will be your parent table for your hierarchy, that will store a single character. And this will be what is called our differential table later on. Now, in order to show you how to build from scratch, I'll be taking advantage of the GitHub integration with NetBeans, and I'll be deleting the fully functional inheritance-based tables that I have here, and we'll work backwards using the GitHub integration to refill in the things that are missing. So I'll start by deleting these tables, or these classes rather. Now from here, we're just going to recreate so we have fresh ones like you would get through following the normal process of creating an entity class. And I'll select them. It's going to go with full default, create them in the correct package. So now we have these freshly generated classes. Now these arrows signify things that are different from the files that I just deleted. So we're going to go through one by one and the ones that are important. Now here, we're missing an annotation. And this is basically for a discriminator value. Now this is in the Jetpack class. This is one of our subclasses. And we're giving it the discriminator value J. In fact, let's just go ahead and go to the product first. So it'll make more sense if we start with the main class. Now, first we have these two annotations that need to be added. So we're going to add them and have a look at what they are. We have inheritance, strategy, and that'd be inheritance type joined. And then we have our discriminator column, which is product type, like we talked about earlier. We're going to go ahead and add the imports necessary for these, as well as another miscellaneous import that I use for some of my other class structure. Now here, of course, we're going to need to change this. Well, actually, you don't need to change it to abstract, but it's the way that I implemented it with some of the methods that I used. It'd be a good idea to make it an abstract class so that you can have some abstract methods in here for polymorphism purposes. The polymorphic method that I talked about earlier. So this class didn't take much to get converted. We just had to add these two annotations, just letting it know what the inheritance strategy is and what the discriminator column is. Moving back to the Jetpack class, we've got this discriminator value and we're giving it a value of J. And what this will do is it'll just store a J in the main product table whenever we're talking about a Jetpack object. And all this is behind the scenes. You don't have to worry about any of it really. You just have to make sure you have these annotations in place. And now, with the Jetpack class, we need to, of course, make sure that it extends product, because we're actually going to do real inheritance with the entity classes, and that'll be modeled in the database with these annotations that we're putting up. I'll go ahead and make all the miscellaneous changes that I made to my class. First of all, to note, because we have the storage for the primary key of the prod ID in the table here, we will have that show up in our entity classes, but that's not necessary to have in our actual classes because they're inheriting that characteristic from the product class. So we're going to get rid of that like I've done here. And then we'll just modify the constructor a little bit. These changes don't end up being necessary. It's just things that I did to clean things up. And all these methods that I'm changing down here are all specific to my implementation. This isn't necessary to change for the inheritance, but I'm just changing it to make sure it's in line with the previous files so that it'll, work together. Going to the shark repellent class, we'll see the same sort of thing. We're going to add the necessary imports. And then we have this annotation for our discriminator value again. Make sure that shark repellent is extending product now. And then we're clearing out, like we did before, we're clearing out the ID column because we don't need it, because we're inheriting that directly from product. We just need the space in the table to store it. Just getting rid of the getter and setter for product ID since we don't have the attribute anymore, it's not necessary. All the same things that we did with the previous class, just getting rid of stuff that isn't needed. If you left it though, it would be fine. So now it's nice and simple and clean. And we'll do this with the last class. Adding the annotation for discriminator value for book, of course, B makes sense. And then, of course, we can actually get rid of all the named queries because we'll never operate named queries on this. We'll be doing it on our project object more than likely. Again, getting rid of the ID because we just need the storage in the database, but it doesn't need to be represented in this class because since book extends product, product already has the prod ID as an attribute, so we don't have to worry about it. Getting rid of the methods that get and set prod ID as before. Of course, we're doing the exact same thing with these three classes. It's a bit of a repetitive process. So now we've gone from the generated classes that I had to the classes that I actually had in my project that were fully functioning with an inheritance hierarchy. Really a pretty simple process. I'll put a link to some documentation that I referenced whenever making this that gives you a pretty clear picture of what the tables need to look like, and as well as how you need to make these changes to these classes. The link will be in the description. On that link, you'll want to look specifically at this section, the joined multiple table inheritance that I used. And it gives you everything here. But that is really everything. So good luck. Have fun.